Hi, welcome to today's video. My name is Paul. So this week you're going to see me doing a little bit of charcoal landscape drawing. On the screen you can see the materials that I'm going to use. It's pretty basic. It's a piece of willow charcoal, kneaded eraser, a few different charcoal pencils that I may use later on, some tissue paper for smudging the charcoal. And the paper that I'm actually drawing onto is just a basic sketch paper. There's absolutely nothing special about this paper in any way. It's just a standard sketchbook. The tissue paper, some people call it Kleenex or whatever you want to call it. The reason for that is to smudge the charcoal. You don't have to use the sort of Kleenex tissue style paper. You could use your hands, you can use a cloth, you could probably use a sponge. I've never tried using that, but it might work as well. It's basically just something soft and somewhat absorbent, and it's there so that you can, well, I guess two things you can do with it. Well, there's two things I use it for. Number one is, okay, when you put the charcoal down onto the paper, as you can see me doing, it's obviously very black, very dark. And you get a lot of contrast then between the white paper and the black charcoal. If you want something in the middle, a sort of mid-value, a grey, one way of doing that is what you can see me doing at the moment, and that's smudging the charcoal. When you smudge it with this absorbent tissue paper, it lifts off some of the charcoal, leaving a grey instead of the black. It's just it's one way of getting a sort of mid-value. So you have the black charcoal, the white paper, and then some sort of grey in between. Another reason for using this smudging technique is edges. So when you put the charcoal down onto the paper, you get a very hard edge, very abrupt edge, basically where the charcoal ends. So you get that hard contrast between the black charcoal and the white paper. If you want a softer edge, more diffuse edge, again, smudging is one way of doing it. You might use it, for example, in the sky, and you'll see me doing that in a minute or two. It's to create the feeling of sort of more fluffy clouds, if you like, with the softer, more diffuse edges. All of this stuff I'm doing in the foreground at the bottom of the paper is trying to create a feeling of detail, an impression of detail. Grasses and leaves and twigs and things growing up. So I use smudging, I use the kneaded eraser. It's very good for lifting off the charcoal and exposing the white paper underneath. If you've never used the kneaded eraser, it's just, I think it's unvulcanized rubber or something like that. It's quite soft, it's flexible, you can mold it into different shapes, and as I said, it's very good for lifting off dry material like charcoal. So you can see me using it in the sky, and I used it in the foreground to create a feeling of grass and things. You don't have color, obviously, with charcoal, so you're just relying on suggesting shapes, creating shapes using values. I should say the way that I do these drawings, and you saw at the beginning, I just sort of crumbled up a bit of charcoal and started messing about with it. My approach to drawing and painting is very loose style, and it's inspired especially by sort of modernist art. The art that was around sort of in the late part of the 19th century going into the early 20th century in France. It's not a style that everybody likes. Some people prefer a tighter style, the more sort of naturalistic or realistic approach to making art. The two styles, you know, people will debate which one's right, which one's wrong or better. It's kind of a pointless debate, in my opinion, because the two goals, the goals of the two styles are so completely different. I think it's a huge chasm, and some people just want to be on one side and some people want to be on the other. And I'm very much on sort of loose, somewhat abstract style of drawing and painting. On the screen on the right hand side is the drawing you just saw me doing, and on the left hand side another example. There's lots of good things about charcoal. It is one of the cheapest art materials you can get. It's not too fussy. You can use it on many different types of paper, unlike say watercolor, where you have to use a watercolor paper, and and the type of paper you use will have a huge effect on the final results and things. Charcoal's a bit more easygoing than that. It's not as fussy. It's easier to work with. It's a more forgiving material. You can put down, take it off, put more down, and you can mess around with it. Again, with something like watercolor, you can't do that. Watercolor, 60 seconds or so after you put it on the paper, that's it. It's there permanently. So it is a good material, and it's a good material to work with for beginners, I think. There are some downsides to using charcoal. Obviously, you don't have any color. Because you don't have color, the final drawings can look a bit dark and gloomy. One way to try and avoid that is to leave more of the white paper showing through, especially if you're going to draw or paint the way I do, this sort of loose, somewhat abstract style of drawing and painting, where things are not just representational, it's more artistic. So you don't have to cover every inch of the paper with charcoal. You can leave quite a bit of the white paper showing through, and that leaves the final drawing then as a bit brighter, not just as dark and gloomy. It's just my opinions. Anyway, I've been doing a bit of this charcoal landscape drawing and painting again recently, so I just thought I'd share that. Hopefully it was interesting, and hopefully see you again in 2 weeks' time.